Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind. My guest today is Stuart Rosenblum, and he's going to be talking to us about his journey and how it's resulted in a rather remarkable book that I think has value for all of us. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I understand today's your birthday.
Yes, it is. And what's interesting is it's the age is that it ties into what people typically would call a retirement age of 65, but I'm not ready for that. I've got so much more to give so anyways, it's a special day.
Yeah. And for those of you who are watching or listening, it's probably not going to be on this particular day, but Stuart's birthday is on Halloween, which is a rather remarkable day to have for a birthday. What's that like, Stuart?
It's been great as a in all stages of my life, really. I mean, I've always had great parties, and it's been fun. And even as a kid, and then as a young adult, and even as an adult, it's always been great. So, and people are always kind of loose and have a good time on Halloween.
Yeah, it's a fun day for almost all of us. So,
Yeah.
Stuart, just tell us a bit about your story and how it leads to this book that you've completed for us. Because I think it's a distillation of a lot of that journey that's been yours. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's kind of what it's all about. So my story is really I was a workaholic, and even prior to that, I tried to do a lot at one time. I was a young, got married fairly young, had children fairly young, was an entrepreneur. So I was trying to do all of this stuff at once. And when you're juggling all these types of things together, it's hard to keep it all going. And so what happened for me was over time, as being this workaholic entrepreneur, I let other parts of my life go. Like I really let my health go, where I gained a lot of weight, and I didn't work on my relationship with my wife enough. But thank God we made it through the other side to, we're in year 37 of being married. And I wanted a better relationships even with my kids, right? Where I felt like I focused too much time on working. And when you have your own companies, my foot was on the pedal all the time, trying to make more and trying to, pay bills, make sure I'm making payroll, all this stuff. And that was always where I put my highest priority. And so what happened for me was, I did come to a low where, I had financial problems. Like I said, I gained a bunch of weight. I wasn't doing well with my relationships, and I took a step back and started saying, like, I want something better. And so it ended up that I threw my resume out on a whim. Hadn't had a job for anybody in years, and I had one interview for 5 hours with a Fortune 20 company, and they said, "You want to try this?" And my background also, yes, I passed the CPA exam, so I had qualifications, right? But I hadn't done it, and so I went and tried it. I said, "Sure, I'll try this." So, and I went in, and it was kind of weird for me because I had to really focus on this big company environment. I hadn't been in it for a while, and I was able to come up with some really big wins by looking at things differently because I was not had been an entrepreneur and been in other businesses where we did things differently. So I came in and saved a lot of money, like $10 million on the first thing I looked at, another 10 million. And then I came up with an idea within this company. and they let me build that out. So then they called me an entrepreneur. And so what that did for me was that they talked a lot about work-life balance at a company like this. They talked about it. And so even though I as a workaholic, as an entrepreneur, I worked way too much. And at this job, I worked as much as most, but it was a lot less than I worked when I was working for myself. And I found out that I could take that extra time and work on me and work on my relationships and work on taking care of my money. And it really turned my life around where it's just unbelievable where I am today. And the book is me sharing my story along with my partner, Rob Fiance, about how to balance your life. And what I did was I just started taking tiny steps. Like instead of trying to think that I was going to lose all the weight at once, I started walking a little bit, and then I started walking a little bit more, and I started eating less and eating better. And over time, I lost 80 pounds. Which was incredible. So I'm feeling good about that. And so our book talks about how do you do that? How do you prioritize these different areas of your life to make really tiny changes that we call micro moves? And it's a series of 20 different areas that we have people take an assessment on, and such as in the main thing is it's called the balance equation, and the equation is self plus health plus relationships plus money. And you take an assessment, you see what you'd like to prioritize, and what we call a small micro move, which is a tiny, tiny step. Like I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to do 50 or not 50, 5 push-ups. I'm going to read 10 minutes a day. I do that now every morning as part of my routine. 10 minutes a day. Now I read 15 books a year, which I never read before.
So let me ask you a question, just to back up, because I want to hear lots more about this plan that you offer people to put things in balance. I'm imagining other people are thinking the same thing I am. Wait a minute. If this man worked so hard, so many hours, all the time and was neglecting other areas of his life because so much energy was going into work, how did he get in financial trouble? So what happened, Stuart? How did that work?
So I just took my eye way off the ball in that area. And no matter what, I was overspending too, because I wasn't really focused. Like we sent our kids to a private school in an area where the public schools are great in the Conejo Valley in Southern California. And we had, full-time maids. We bought brand new cars, so I was out of control in that area too, about not really focused and having a consciousness around all of the different areas of my life, money being one of them, right? So it's really at the end of the day not about how much you make all the time. It's also what do you end up with, right? And if you're not managing it with good consciousness and clarity of where you're at, then you're going to be out of balance in that area of your life too.
So was there a kind of a mindset? I'm working so hard, I get to indulge myself. I get to indulge in these
Sure.
extravagances. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And then what that did though, too, when you have a business and you're trying to have a lifestyle, it creates stress on the business because you're stealing from business one pocket to pay the other one, right? So that puts you out of balance there too, because yes, I had successful businesses, but they need time to mature. They need time to grow. And if you think that, you start a business, even though you're profitable and making money in that business, if you're pulling it all out because your lifestyle's too big, again, that's not the right way to do it.
So at this point in life, probably lots of my viewers and listeners are not working. They may be retired. How do these principles apply to a life where you're not out there in the world earning? Because I bet they do.
Sure. I mean, what I would say is it applies in any kind of state of a life, right? So even when like say you're going into retirement and you're not earning, like what do you want to spend your time on? What are your aspirations? The whole thing is we have 24 hours of a day, finite, right? What are we going to do with that time? Well, if we take care of ourselves and we say, okay, typically uh, sleep, you hear about 8 hours, right? That you should sleep. You don't have to, you're not, if you're not working anymore, right? Then you have more time. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to learn something new? Do you want to spend time in nature? Do you want to, but clarity and consciousness around these things are important. The other thing is, what do you want? What do you not want to do? What would you like to subtract from your life and make a micro move on a subtraction of something in your life? So even at the stage of where you're not working, um, you can't do everything. So if you're, say, somebody who does exercise and do a lot of these things, but then you say, oh, I want to take yoga classes, I want to play tennis, I want to do all these things. Well, how do you fit that in and still have the time to just take time for yourself and relax and meditate or whatever else you want to do? So that's that. And then also for your money things, I mean, on fixed incomes, I think it's important to have a lot of clarity to understand, what are you going to do with that money and what do you want to do with that money? And tiny changes can make differences for you to do other things that you might want to do.
So I know from speaking with friends that at this point in life, there's often a lot of fear about not ending up having enough. We want to have enough to last us the rest of our life. And with inflation and different pressures, there's a fear about that. Do you see people getting in trouble as they get older? Maybe trying to continue with a lifestyle that has become a bit of an indulgence, a bit of an extravagance, or how else do you see people getting in trouble?
Yeah, no, I would say for sure if people have a certain amount of um, income or inflow of money that I would call it when you're working, right? And that number changes, but you don't change the expense side of things. How does that affect what we would call savings or prudent reserves, right? Of how long is that going to last if I'm going negative every month? Like, and do I have a plan of really what I need every month? And what does that look like? And then how long is this money going to last? And I mean, there's ways to get really clear about these things by understanding all these numbers. And then that usually clarity and consciousness gets rid of the fear because it helps with the fear part of it. And then obviously, when we have faith, the faith really is something that can get rid of the fear.
Okay, let's talk about faith because I know in my own life that's so pivotal for me in terms of dealing with the unknown as well as the known. If I feel like I can lean on something bigger than my personality to get through everything, oh, it just gets so much easier. And I have to admit that I get proof that there is something to lean on. You can call it coincidence or you can call it God or you can call it whatever you want. But I get this incredible support. And I hear those stories from people who also have that same approach to life. They may not have a higher power that looks like mine. That doesn't matter, but they've got something to lean on. So let's talk about that as part of one of the ingredients in your approach to getting this equation, this balance equation.
Right. So part of what we call self, which again, back to the main categories we call self plus health plus relationships plus money. And then we drill down and have five subcategories under each one of those. And part of self is spirituality, right? And within that, those you can make micro moves in those areas. So if you want to prioritize growth in that area, what can you do, right? Part of my morning routine is every day I wake up in the morning and do the same thing. And part of that is connecting with a higher power, and making sure that I have that peace in my life, and that continually helps me because it recenters what I'm doing that day and gets me into a place and really connects. And that's been really helpful for me. And I would say people that I talk to that do similar things, it's very helpful for them.
Yeah, it's a key piece, isn't it? Okay, talk about some of those other pieces and maybe how you've used them, how you see other people, especially persons of age, how you're seeing them employ these concepts of the relationship and the health and putting it all together. Because,
Yeah. So listen, I have friends that are, senior to me, and they have read the book. They have really gotten a lot out of it. They some of say even people that are really like even coming off of maybe some kind of a health issue, right? Where they're trying to get back into their groove and strive, they'll say, I'm going to make a micro move. I'm going to take a walk that's 5 minutes to start, right? Like if they've had some kind of a surgery or something, or I'm going to call my daughter more often, or I'm just going to text them and say, checking in, just little tiny things like that to stay connected to people really work. And people get busy. And I think that it's really important to take care of your side of the street by doing good things and the right things and not always having expectations of what you get back. And I think part of that is important to this equation too, of what we're talking about. And by the way, when I feel also when you when you take care of that, you're doing the right thing. I think good things happen too, and that's been my experience. Um, and as you go into those other areas of health, say there's physical health, mental health, all these different areas that you can work on in your life. And so our whole process is a continuous improvement process where you kind of assess by taking our assessment. And it's an easy 20 question assessment, takes 5 minutes. You reflect, and then you prioritize something, and then you grow. And it's about these tiny changes that compounded over time make big changes. So it's kind of like the whole concept of the mountain, right? You don't look at that whole mountain to the top. It's like, what's the first step in front of you? What's the next step? And that's how you get that to the top of that mountain.
and it also means that as you climb that mountain, you're going to enjoy where you are in the process, right? You're going to see those plants
Absolutely.
and those rocks as you go up and things change. So, one of the things I know is difficult for us humans is consistency. And the micro moves that you're talking about, I can just hear people saying, well, that's not going to make any difference. But you're saying, yes, it does. But I'm assuming that one of the reasons it makes a difference is because you keep with it. And by keeping with it, say the walk for 5 minutes, you kind of fall in love with taking a walk. Pretty soon it's 10 minutes. Pretty soon it's a mile. Pretty soon you're moving
Absolutely.
out of your neighborhood and finding places that are intriguing. And so or meditation, you do a little tiny bit of, I've known that, people who say, I can't meditate, I would say start with 1 minute, just 1 minute of trying to empty your mind. Don't worry if it works. Just sit there for 1 minute. And pretty soon they're doing the 20-minute meditation, and it's giving them a kind of serenity that they haven't known before. So it's not just the micro moves, it's also staying with them, right?
Yes, yes, that consistency is key. And also the reason too for micro moves are tiny doable things that as you put them into your life, it's not disruptive to your life either. So it's stuff that as you put it in, it's not affecting anything else. Well, a lot of people, obviously you hear about the people, they want to just say, I'm going to go and do this big thing, right? But then they're not understanding like what are their expectations what's the success rate, right? The whole idea is be successful, have that feeling of achievement and grow from there, right? Instead of setting yourself up for failure where if you take on something so big, what's the percentage of you really succeeding at it, right? And putting it in your life. So a lot of it has to do with also doing stuff that you know you'll be successful at. And then we also go into a lot of different ways to optimize these micro moves to where there's something called habit stacking that we talk about, where like if you brush your teeth every day, that's a habit you already have. So maybe while you're doing that on your counter, you're going to do 10 push-ups against the counter while you right as at the same time you brush your teeth, because a habit sticks more if you attach it to something that you already have as a habit. So, and that's something that we talk about. And really, the ultimate stage is to get to some stage of flow where things are just happening at ease for yourself, and you're just moving, and you don't have to even think about these things, and they're just you're in the state of flow, and when you get there, you know it, you feel it, and it's unbelievable.
So I'm also thinking that we need some patience as we start this. We can't be in a big hurry. When you were talking about making too big a move at first, when I worked in the field of addiction, somebody would leave our treatment center. I worked in a hospital, and we had, we'd work on a plan with them. And sometimes they say, well, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to lose all this weight. And I'm going to, it would go on and on and on. And we'd say, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're going to have to be learning how to live without taking a drink or a drug on a daily basis. Start there. Don't, and the ones that were just determined to do it all at once, they never succeeded. But the ones who were able to just take little, what you're calling micro moves, I love that word. That was how they built that habit of sobriety. And I imagine this applies to anything that we're trying to change. If we just pull back on the impatience and say, I'm going to do just a little bit, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick with it. So I have another thing I wanted you to talk about if you encounter this, Stuart. Sometimes when people retire, they've been spending decades in a job they've hated. They've basically gotten paid for suffering. And when that isn't a pressure in their life anymore, there's a sense of, I'm entitled to do whatever I want. I want to be entertained. I want to take these cruises. I want to blah, blah, blah. And I'm suspecting that that's fine. Yes, having rewards for going through all that for all those years is fine. But in my experience, and also in my observation, people get more out of being of service than they get out of taking. It's the giving that seems to feel so good and so validating and sustaining. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I mean, one of our categories within money is charity, and we talk about there. It's not only about the money that you give; it's also about the time. So when you talk about service, about doing things, and it doesn't have to be even organized charity. I mean, being of service to people being of service to people on the streets, being just having that mindset of service, right? And it comes back to you tenfold. And what I would say is, depending on the stage of your life, right? So if you gave service or you gave to charity as financial when you were making more money, when you had this career and you were working all the time, that's one thing. But giving of your time is even harder, really, in a lot of ways, because just giving money is it doesn't take up as much of your time. But it just depends on, where you are in your life. But the feeling of going and doing something for other people is so rewarding. And by the way, what we also talk about is all these different variables and areas of your life, they all affect each other, right? So when you go and you do some charity for somebody and you feel good about that, that really affects your mindset of maybe your health or and how you're feeling about yourself. And how are you acting in your relationships? And so they're all tied together. So that's why it's balancing. It's like, okay, you have all these things. It's not just about the juggling. It's about if you do this thing good over here, it's going to help you in this area over here.
I remember watching this beautiful film that was made quite a long time ago on Mother Teresa. And there was this fellow, and he was obviously an American, and he was in the act of trying to write a check to her. And she kept saying to him, "Come, come." What she was trying to tell him was, don't write the check, come and be of service. That's what you really have to give is you, not the bank
Hmm.
account, you. And yes, that makes so much sense that when we offer something and we get that lovely feeling that we've been of service, we've done something of value, we've helped, it does affect everything else around us. I was talking to a friend recently who's having some money problems, but she was telling me how her life is better than it's ever been. And all these things she was describing, you couldn't write a check and buy them. Her relationship with her children, I mean, it's improved so much because she's put attention there and changed the way she's dealing with them and other things in her family. She's got a very close family around here. They all live close by, and that's beginning to change in a wonderful way. These are not things you can buy. So
Right.
we have ways of being very, very rich, very wealthy that don't have to do with spending money or a bank account. And we need to be able to take those into consideration when we're considering our status as a person and their money or their wealth or whatever, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, for me too, this is a way of giving back. This book, it's a passion project for me. That's how it began. Like, I want to tell my story. It was so helpful for me. I want other people to get the same from it. And it's turned into something, that's grown from that. But that's really where the idea came from. And so, you know, I'm all about that. I want other people to kind of get out of this what I got, and my life is just completely changed, and I want that. I want that for others.
That's a beautiful gift to be able to give. So show us the book and tell us where people can find it, Stuart.
Okay, so the book is called The Balance Equation, and it
Okay.
is. You can find it on Amazon. You can go to our website at thebalanceequation.com. We also, this book is being used for employer groups also, where we have companies buying it for their employees and they're interacting with us in the balance equation program. We have it as under Audible too. There's something a book that can be bought where you can listen to it. I'm the guy that picks up the paper copy and uses it, and I want to hold it in my hand. But yeah, we and yeah, and it's also on Kindle too.
Okay, so it's very available and you
Very
know how
available.
to find it. It's on Amazon, it's at their website, The Balance Equation. Um,
And the other
Stuart,
thing is you can go and take the assessment too at thebalanceequation.com for
oh,
free. You can go there, take an assessment. You will get a return email that will tell you what the results are, and you can see what your numbers look like, and then you can pick them. You can start with some micro moves of what do I want to do about what my life looks. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is all about how you feel about these areas. It's not an objective thing. It's like, how do you feel? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's how we feel about these things. I mean, I've run into people that give zero money for charity, but feel good. They're a 5 out of 5 in charity, and that's okay. That's how they feel. Or they feel, good about their health, but there might be, a little bit overweight. It's just at the end of the day, it's, things come and go and move around, but it's how you feel.
okay. So part of it is just our sense of being okay. And part of it is the attitude we bring to those things. And it sounds like this book, through that clarity, that amazing gift of clarity, moving away from that fear and vagueness to knowing where you stand, and then being willing to move in those little movements to make a big difference. Stuart, this has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And again, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ah,
And
yeah.
thanks for having me. I really
Oh,
enjoyed it too, and I really appreciate the time.
yeah, this has been very valuable, I think. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.